الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلوات الله وسلامه على نبينا الأمين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا ثم أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله سبحانه وتعالى وخير الهدى هدى نبينا صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Last Sunday we did something from the story of the life of the Nabi of Allah al-Mubtala Ayub salawatullahi wassalamu alayhi. Today inshallah we'll take something from the story of another one of the main prophets who were mentioned in the Quran, two of them actually, today as well as next week, because the story is so long, but we want to deal with two different aspects of the life of Sulaiman, who was a Nabi from Bani Israel, and he came before Musa and before Harun and before Yusha. And the hadith that we want to deal with in the story of these two illustrious prophets has to deal with the issue that is the main and focal point concerning their da'wah throughout the Quran. Those people who are judges, the qudat, the qadi, they are the people who concern themselves with the story of Sulaiman and Dawood, because throughout the Quran their stories are dealing with judging. In the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, we have rules and regulations when it comes to passing judgment against people, and it's not based upon your desires, and it's not based upon your closeness or your relationship to a person. It's not based upon any of those issues. It's based upon a systematic way of laws that have been given, and whether we like it or we don't like it, these rules and regulations have been instituted by Allah Azza wa Jal for the protection of the people. The Prophet told us sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, لو يعطى الناس بدعواهم لدعى الناس أموال الآخرين ودماءهم ولكن البينة على مدعي وعلى من أنكر اليمين. He said, if people were given simply according to their mere claims, then the people would claim the blood and the money and the property of other people. He said, but the burden of proof, the onus of proof, is upon the claimant, and on the one who the claim is being made against him is that he says, wallahi, it didn't happen. No, that didn't happen. This is one of the many rules that have come to us in our religion. Unfortunately, many people, when we are put in positions of judging between our relatives, our mother and our fathers, between our friends, situations that happen on TV and other than that, many of the people from this ummah, we follow the Nasara and we follow the Yahud. And Allah Ta'ala has put forth a question, and it's a su'al inkari. It's a question that's rhetorical, but it really doesn't need an answer. And that question that he put forth is the statement, أَتَسْتَبْدِلُونَ الَّذِي هُوَ أَدْنَى بِالَّذِي هُوَ خَيْرٌ. Do you people want to take that which is lower in degree and replace it, take what is lower over that which is better? How are we going to take their way, their minhaj, their deen, their way of thinking, and put aside the divine law of Allah Azza wa Jal? How are we going to do that? So throughout the Quran and the authentic Sunnah, the story of Sulaiman and his son, his father Dawood, because Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَوَهَبْنَا لِدَاوُودَ سُلَيْمَانَ نِعْمَ الْعَبْدِ إِنَّهُ أَوَّابٌ. Verily we have given to Dawood his son Sulaiman, and he was a good slave, and he was oft repentive. He was always remembering Allah. So those of you who are fathers, one of the favors that Allah Ta'ala bestows upon the father is that he blesses him with a son, the way that Allah blessed Dawood with a son, Sulaiman, to walk in his footsteps, if the father makes a big jihad in developing his son. He takes the time out. And that's why, inshallah, next week, we're going to deal with this aspect of what's known in Al-Islam as Alu al-Himma. Alu al-Himma. Having high determination. How Al-Islam doesn't want us to be mediocre people. Our schools are mediocre. Some of us, we want to work, and I'm just going to work just enough. Don't make too much noise. I'm just going to just have my niche, and that's it. I'm satisfied with mediocrity. I'm not going to do my own business. I'm not going to try to do something that is going to require me to shoot for the stars and so on. Because in the story of Dawood and Sulaiman comes this issue, and we'll deal with that next week. Ash-Shahid is the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal blessed Dawood with a son who was similar to him. His son was a covering for him, a reflection of him, a replica of him. And both of their stories have a lot to do with ruling in Al-Islam. The hadith that we want to take today is a famous hadith that's been collected by the Imam al-Bukhari, Muslims, muttafaq alayhi. Al-Bukhari brought it in a number of places in his book. One of the places he brought it in his book is the book of the Anbiya. The book of Al-Anbiya. He also brought it in the chapter of Al-Qada, judging and ruling. And Imam Muslim also brought it in the chapter of Al-Aqdiyah, the ways of judging. And he brought it under the title Ikhtilaf al-Mujtahideen. How the Mujtahids have ikhtilaf. How the Mujtahid people have ikhtilaf. Ikhtilaf in our religion is not necessarily something that is blameworthy, depending upon the type of ikhtilaf it is and the reason why the ikhtilaf comes about. And as we mentioned on a number of occasions, ikhwani, part of the issue of judging, when it comes to ikhtilaf, if you're an individual who you don't have the ability to figure out the ruling of something, then you ask someone who you trust from the ulama, someone who you trust from the people of knowledge, and you take his position. After taking his position, be quiet and don't be argumentative and don't debate and don't have an opinion of something to say. Because this taqleed al-a'ma, blind following, is sometimes permissible in the religion. Not the way some of these masajid are calling to it. You have to be on the madhab, you have to blindly follow. La, that's against the religion. But there are some issues that you have to blindly follow because we don't have the ability, we don't have the knowledge to figure it out. But the blind follower, the muqallid, and in the issue, the muqallid is jahil, because taqleed means taking someone's position and you don't know his dalil. You ask him, what's the ruling about this and that? He says halal. You say okay. If you take it like that, without saying where's the dalil, without investigating and researching the issue, you just were satisfied with what he said, which is a form of being mediocre sometimes. You have the ability to go and research it, but for whatever reason you say okay. You are muqallid, then that means don't have an opinion. So we have people who are calling to taqleed of the madhab, taqleed of the imam, and then they're very opinionated and they're very loud. Ya akhi, make taqleed if that's what you want to do, but after making taqleed, remain silent, because the muqallid is jahil and he doesn't have an opinion. He doesn't have an opinion. In this particular hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, he said, the Prophet told his companions, كانت امرأتان معهما ابناهما جاء الذئب فذهب الذئب بابن إحداهما فقالت لصاحبتها إنما ذهب بابنك وقالت الأخرى إنما ذهب بابنك فتحاكمتا إلى داود صلوات الله وسلامه عليه فقضى به للكبرى فخرجتا على سليمان بن داود عليه السلام فأخبرتاه فقال لهما سليمان ائتوني بالسكين أشقه بينهما أو بينكما. فقالت الصغرى لا تفعل يرحمك الله هو ابنها فقضى به للصغرى. This tremendous hadith is the Prophet's way, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of mentioning to the people an incident and a story to help them to appreciate the lessons that are in this case. So let us consider it, inshallah. He said that there were two ladies from Bani Israel. They both had children. Other books of hadith have narrated this story with additions, so we have to bring all of those additions together. But here, this is the narration of Imam al-Bukhari. Imam Muslim, he brings some addition. Imam al-Nasa'i, he brings some addition. So we'll fill in the whole picture doing the translation, inshallah. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that there were these two ladies. They both had children. The older lady, the elder lady, she put her child down, became preoccupied. Maybe she made wudu. She put her child down. After putting her child down, the wolf came and took her baby and ran off and killed the baby, devoured the baby, ate the baby. After that, the other lady, who also had a child, she put her child down. While she wasn't looking, the older lady came, whose child was devoured by the wolf, and she stole the younger girl's baby. And then they started to argue. They had a dispute. They had a misunderstanding. The haqq is with who? As it happens between the people. It belongs to who? The land belongs to who? The house belongs to who? The money belongs to who? So the young lady whose child it was, she said, that's my baby. The older lady said, no, your baby was devoured by the wolf. The wolf took your baby and ran off. So they went to the Nabi of Allah, Dawood, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Dawood looked at the situation. And like I mentioned in the hadith earlier, if people were given according to their mere claims, then people would claim the lives and the money of people. I can just come and say, this thing belongs to me. And from that claim, the judge just gives me your house. He just gives me your car simply because I said that belongs to me. No, it's not like that. He said the burden of proof, al-bayyina ala mudda'i. The burden of proof is upon the one who's making the claim. If you claim that that's your child, then bring the dalil. Dawood, he looked at the situation. Both ladies are saying the baby belongs to me. He looked at whose hands the baby was in. So he judged for the older lady who was not the rightful mother. But she had the dalil. So if in al-Islam the person came into someone's property, he forged papers, he had the deed in his hand, even if he got it in the roundabout way, they judge in his behalf, in his favor. But we'll come to that inshallah. When they came out of the chamber of Dawood, they happened upon his son Sulaiman. They just finished the judgment. Now they come to the second judge. When they came to Sulaiman said, what happened? They told him the story. Sulaiman said, okay, bring me a knife. I'll cut the baby in half. I'll give you a half of the baby and I'll give you the other half of the baby. The lady who had the baby, and it wasn't her baby, the older lady, she said, okay, that sounds good to me. I'll take half of the baby. The wolf took my baby anyway. The lady who it was her baby, she said, no, may Allah have mercy upon you. Don't cut the baby. The baby is hers. Let her have the baby. That's the lady who doesn't even have the haqq. She said, it's hers. Don't cut the baby. Sulaiman had the people to take the baby from the older lady, and he gave it to the younger lady, and that's the hadith. This hadith, ikhwani, has a lot of fawaid, a lot. But before we get into some of the benefits, I just wanted to remind you all of some of the etiquettes of being a judge. You may be called in to deal with the family disputes. You may be called in because of your position, because of the circumstances. The first etiquette that we have to bring to your attention is what the Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Man ju'ila qadiyan bayna an-nas faqad dhubiha bighayri sikkin. He said, anyone who has been made to be a judge between the people and their disputes, he has been slaughtered without a knife. He has been slaughtered without a knife. Dhabiha, meaning if you're not the man for the job, if you're not an individual who can be adil, if you don't have knowledge, if you're an individual who can't be fair and just, then don't get involved. You do not have to judge. Allah Ta'ala mentioned that to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam. فَإِن جَاءُوكَ فَاحْكُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ وَإِن تُعْرِضْ عَلَيْكَ وَإِن تُعْرِضْ فَلَنْ يُضُرُّكَ شَيْئًا. If those people come to you for a judgment, Ya Muhammad, then judge between them in truth. Ahlul Kitab. But if you turn away and you don't want to judge, it doesn't hurt you one bit. You don't have to be the judge. Who said you have to be the judge? You're going to be slaughtered without the knife because you're an individual who you're afraid of going against the grain. You're afraid of making your parents upset. You're afraid of your uncles. You're afraid of what the people are going to say. So the first etiquette is that you shouldn't judge. Most of us shouldn't judge. And that's because the odds are against us. The Prophet told us sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, al-qudat thalathatun, qadiyan fil nar wa qadin fil jannah. He said there are three types of judges. Three. Two of them are in the hellfire and one is in Jannah. So 2/3, the majority of the judges are in the hellfire. There are three types of judges. He said the first one, رَجُلٌ عَلِمَ الْحَقِّ فَقَضَى بِهِ فَهُوَ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. There is a judge who knows the truth. He's qualified, he's competent. So he judges between the people based upon knowledge. He's in the Jannah. He said the second one, رَجُلٌ جَاهِلَ عَنَ الْحَقِّ فَقَضَى بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فَهُوَ فِي النَّارِ. The second man is ignorant. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know anything. He has no knowledge and he judges with ignorance. Knowledge does not always mean, it doesn't always mean knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah, although that's better. Some of us, we come from countries where the Qabila has an important role to play. Afghani people, Somalian people, we have those elders who have something to say. Many times they don't have knowledge of the Kitab and the Sunnah, but they're intelligent, they're experienced, they're fair and they're just. Jahil here doesn't necessarily mean jahil about the Quran and the Sunnah. He should have knowledge, but if he doesn't have knowledge, but he's still fair and just, experienced, mature, competent, then this is a good thing. There was a man during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His kunya was Abul Hakam, Al-Hakam. The Prophet said, why do they call you Abul Hakam? He said, because anytime there's a dispute between the people, they come to me and I give my judgment and all sides and all parties are satisfied and happy with what I say. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah is Al-Hakam. Don't call yourself that, Abul Hakam, the father of Allah. Allah is Al-Hakam. He said, do you have any children? He said, yes. I have 3 sons. He said, what's their names? He said, I have a son, Abdullah. I have a son, Shuraih. I have a son, Muslim. He said, which one is the eldest? He said, Shuraih. He said, then you are Abu Shuraih. Although Abdullah is a better kunya, better name. But he named him based upon his eldest son. You're Abu Shuraih. The shahid from that is, the man didn't necessarily have a lot of knowledge about Quran and Sunnah, but he was fair and he was just. So the second person who will be in the hellfire, the judge who will be in the hellfire, is the one who is ignorant. The third one, he says, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, rajulun araf al-haqqa fajara fil hukm fahuwa fil nar. The third one is the man who knows the truth, but he didn't judge based upon the truth. So he goes into the hellfire. So those two. One, he has ignorance and he judges. He goes to the hellfire because he's jahil. Second one, he knows the truth and he has knowledge, but he goes against the correct judgment. As a result of that, he goes into the hellfire. That's from the etiquettes of judging. Also, ikhwani, from the etiquettes of judging is what the Prophet told the people, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, la yaqtiyanna ahadun bayna ithnain wa huwa ghadban. Do not let any of you judge between 2 people while he's angry. Don't judge between 2 people while you're angry. The person comes and you may think about 2 individuals who they asked you to be the judge. And that's applicable in this hadith. But what about your sister? When she comes and her husband did something to her, and then you hear he hit her, he did something that you didn't like, and based upon that story of hers, you take her position, you become angry, and you make a decision. This is the judgment that you can't do. And if you were there and there are two disputants, don't make a judgment between two people while you're angry. Because anger, Khwani, obviously, as everyone knows, it causes the mind to be covered like khamr. Sometimes anger is more harmful than the khamr itself. It makes a person crazy. He'll take his hand and he'll punch the wall that is made out of cement. For some reason he thought that he was going to be able to hurt the wall with his fist or with his toe. If that's not majnoon, then I don't know what majnoon is. He kicks the wall and he breaks his toes. That's what anger does to the person. Don't judge when you're in that condition. Similar to anger, the hadith only mentioned anger, but there are other emotions. Don't judge when you're extremely hungry. Don't judge when you are extremely full. Don't judge when you're extremely tired. Don't judge when you're extremely happy, because you have lost your equilibrium. If a person is extremely tired and people come to him to listen, he listens to their case, he just wants to get out and go to sleep. So if you see the person is trying to be in a rush, you have a serious issue, have mercy on yourself and mercy on him. He's not going to do justice to your situation if he has something to do. So don't judge between people when you've lost your equilibrium. Too angry, too tired, too hungry, too thirsty, too whatever is the case. Have an i'tidal when you're balanced and you're in your normal position. And the judge, anyone who's in that position, he has to make himself calm down in order to give the people the justice. Because one of the rules and one of the objectives of judging is to get rid of fitna, to find the truth, and to give the people their haqq. So these extreme emotions, they take away a person's ability. From the etiquettes of judging, Khwani, is what the Prophet says, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam. But before that, I just remember, in Sahih al-Bukhari, there was an incident in which Az-Zubair ibn Awam had a dispute with his neighbor about the water. The water was irrigating their crops, and the man was upset because the water had to run through Az-Zubair, one of the 10 people promised Jannah. The water had to run through his property first. So the other man came and he said, no, why does it run through your property? We should do something where it comes to my property, or we have to do something about this. We have to come up with something. It's a dispute. He has his point of view. The water is free. Why does it have to go through your property? The judge can come and say, because that's the natural flow of the water. The fact that he raised that case is not blameworthy on his part. He has a point of view. Now it's up to the judge to solve the problem. They went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet said, seeing the natural flow of the water, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be takalluf to make it go in the other man's property first, or make it go into the two properties simultaneously. He said, Zubair, let the water go through your property, but hold it back. Don't keep it for a long time. Take 1 hour. And after that 1 hour, let it go to the other man's property. The man said, Ya Rasulullah, do you give that judgment simply because he's your relative? The Prophet became angry. He said, Ya Zubair, let the water go through your property, and when you finish, let it go after that. Now someone, is it permissible? Ummatul Islam. The Prophet said, don't judge when you're angry. Is it permissible for us to say here, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went against his own advice? Can we say that? Can we say that? No, wallahi. No, wallahi. That's how we look at him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That he's ma'soom. He is ma'soom. So there are those Muslims who look for issues all the time to try to hit the hadith and the religion with other hadith and other ayat. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, although he was angry at the man criticizing him for giving a ruling that suggested he gave that ruling because it's his cousin, he became angry as a result of that. that doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that he would ever be unjust. He was actually helping the other man. He could have said at the beginning, the natural flow of the water is this way. Do your irrigation. When you finish, send it. But he took care of the brothers, the brotherhood. Hold it back to use it and then let it go. But when the man accused him of that, the Prophet ﷺ, he gave that ruling. And one of the proofs, the many proofs and indications that he wasn't unfair ever, is when Dhul Khuwaisira came, the father of the Khawarij, and he said, Ya Muhammad, after the Jihad, the Prophet gave the people the spoils of war. He said, this distribution of yours, Ya Muhammad, you were not being fair and just. You didn't want to please Allah. He accused the Prophet of not being fair. The Prophet said, Wayhak, woe unto you. If I'm not just, then who from amongst you can be just? None of you can be just. None of you. And he didn't do anything to suggest he wanted to get revenge. He didn't like that statement. That statement is a statement of kufr. That statement is dhulm. Something that will make any Muslim angry. And yet the Prophet ﷺ didn't do anything. Umar said, Ya Rasulullah, let me chop his head off. The Prophet said, no, don't chop his head off. You want the people to say Muhammad kills his companions? If he was angry for himself, he would have said, go ahead, chop his head off. Because that's kufr what he said. So the point here, ikhwani, is the Prophet ﷺ is divinely inspired by Allah, and his rulings are from Allah. He's ma'asum sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam. From the etiquettes of judging is that he told the people sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, إِذَا جَلَسَ إِلَيْكَ خَصْمَانِ فَلَا تَقْضِ بَيْنَهُمَا حَتَّى تَسْمَعْ مِنَ الثَّانِي كَمَا سَمِعْتَ مِنَ الْأَوَّلِ إِذَا فَعَلْتَ ذَلِكَ فَقَدْ تَبَيَّنَ لَكَ الْقَضَاءُ. Now this is important in our lives as Muslims. He said, if two disputants sit with you, do not listen. Don't make a judgment until you heard from the second one, just like you heard from the first one. I know the brother, and the brother's a good brother. He has good akhlaq. He's calm. He's from the best of the brothers. He tells me his side of the story. I believe that he's telling the truth. I don't think that he's lying. I have husn al-dhan. No reason to think that he's lying. But it is haram to take everything that he says and to believe it until I sit with the second man and I listen to his side of the story. There is a rule in judging. There's a rule in al-Islam. This rule is in our lives. The rule says, al-hukum ala shay far'an tasawwurihi. To give a judgment about something requires you being able to conceive that thing. It requires you being able to conceive that thing. We have a dentist before us. A dentist. In order for the dentist to say, you have an abscess in your mouth, that's your wisdom tooth, he has to have some background about what an abscess is and what a wisdom tooth is. He can't just look at you and he sees that you have red eyes and from far away he says you have an abscess. He has to judge the situation by gathering evidence. That's how we come up with halal, haram, and so forth and so on. You will never be able to render a judgment based upon one side of the story. It's dhulm, and that's how we are. If your friend tells you the story, you believe it. And you don't give the other person the benefit of the doubt. And that's his haq. That's his haq. Anytime someone says to you about someone else this, that, and this and that, and it has another side of the story, you have to say, look, are you sure you didn't do this? Are you sure it wasn't you? What did you do about it? Okay, I believe you, but I have to wait to hear this side of the story. No matter who it is, no matter what the situation is. If you have the ability to contact both people, you have to do that. If that wasn't the case, again, people would have a lot of dhulm. The lady, the wife of the Aziz, all she has to do is say to her husband, what is the jaza, what is the reward of the person who tried to have relations with your wife? That's one side of the story. We don't have to look at his shirt ripped from the front, ripped from the back. No. She made the kalam, her side of the story. That's it. He goes to prison, gets his head chopped off. No, that's dhulm. That's dhulm. In the story of Dawood, Dawood was praying in his private chamber. Two disputants came in. One of them said he became afraid because they didn't belong there. They didn't belong there. One of them spoke and said, don't be afraid. La takhaf. Khasman. Baga ba'duna ala ba'd. Don't be afraid. We're two disputants. We're here to test you. One of us has oppressed the other one. He said, this is my brother. He has 99 sheep. I only have one sheep. He tells me, give me my one sheep. He wants me to give him my one sheep. And he speaks to me rough and tough and he overpowers me. Dawood said, لَقَدْ ظَلَمَكَ بِسُؤَالْ نَعْجِتِكْ إِلَى النَّعَاجِهِ. He has oppressed you by asking you and telling you, demanding you to give him your one sheep. And then Dawood realized that we tested him and he fell down, he made sajda. And he asked Allah to forgive him because he didn't ask the other man, what happened? What's your side of the story? Most people, when they look, you only have one sheep. He has 99 sheep. And he is telling you to give you, oh, that man is a volume. He did that. That's how we judge. Big tears. The lady has big tears. Oh, that's a proof. She must be telling the truth. Look how big her tears are. When did that become, I don't know. We all grew up watching TV. We all grew up watching TV. Emotions, screaming, the way people jump up and down, those are not signs and indications all the time of proof. Those are not signs and indications of proofs. So we have to listen to both sides of the story before you make a judgment in the deen. And that's really critical. From the etiquette, ikhwani, before we get to some of the benefits of this hadith of Sulaiman, salawatullahi wassalamu alayhi, is that in judging in the deen, there shouldn't be two judgments. The Prophet told us, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, لا يقضين أحدكم بقضاءين في قضاء واحد أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Do not let anyone render two judgments in the same situation. There's one problem, which goes to show there's one problem, one situation you're dealing with. The truth is in one angle and falsehood is in the other angle. You can't have the truth and falsehood together. Everyone is right. No. It's either the truth or it's the falsehood. The haqq or the batil. Sunnah or bid'ah. They can't be mixed up. So you can't render a judgment where you say to a person, yes, you have to give the money back. And in the same ruling, no, you don't have to give the money back. Because you didn't help the situation. The reason why you have the judgment is to find out, does he or does he not have to give the money back? Did he misappropriate the money or not? If you give a judgment where it's not clear, it's just left hanging in limbo and suspicion and is suspended in the air, then you didn't help the situation. One judgment, you have to give the money back. You were wrong. You don't have to give the money back. You were right. It can't be two ways. The wisdom of that hadith is clear. One of the reasons why that hadith comes is that you have those people. You can't please everybody. You have to call a spade sometimes. You just have to do it. Sometimes you can avoid it because it's from hikmah to avoid calling a spade because you're deal with, difficult to handle. So sometimes it's okay in the religion not to put everything out there if you do not take people's rights by doing that. But you're managing the problem. That's permissible sometimes. But you can't try to please everyone. As for the hadith and some of the benefits of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from this hadith goes to show that in al-Islam the judgment is based upon what is apparent. The judgment is based upon what is apparent, the zahir. We are not responsible for splitting people's chest open to find out are they telling the truth or they are not telling the truth. You have to judge based upon what is apparent. That's the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It comes in this hadith. Even if you're going to misappropriate someone's haqq. He came with the forged papers. He came with the witnesses who are lying and they're making the qawl az-zur. He got two witnesses who are lying. He came with the proofs. He came with the movie, the video, and it's a lie. But the other person, he didn't bring anything. He didn't bring anything to prove his case. Then you have to judge on his behalf. Dawood is a Nabi of al-Islam, and yet he judged for the older woman, and it wasn't her child. It wasn't her child. And that's what our Prophet used to do, and that's what he used to say. In Sahih Bukhari sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, قال إنما أنا بشر مثلكم وإنكم تختصمون إلي فأقضي بينكم على النحو ما أسمع وَلَعَلَّ بَعْضُكُمْ مَنْ يَكُونَ أَلْحَنَ بِحُجَّتِهِ مِنْ بَعْضٍ. He said, I'm a human being, like you people are human beings. And you come to me with your disputes. I judge between you based upon what I hear. It may be that one of you is more eloquent and more articulate than his brother. So I judge based upon that. This guy has the gift of God. That guy knows how to talk, and he mesmerizes you when he speaks. As we mentioned about Imam Abu Hanifa, they said if Imam Abu Hanifa wanted to prove that this pole was made out of gold, he had the ability to do that. And as we mentioned back then, some scholars took that as a criticism, that he used his brain, that he used intellectual argument, and others said no, it is a praiseworthy example of his intellect, his sharp intellect. And that's the position that we take, that Imam Abu Hanifa, when you talk to him, he had the ability to convince you of the hujjah that he had, the power that he had. Some people are like that, and we all know people like that. They're those individuals when you get into a conflict with them, and this is one of the reasons why we don't debate. This is why you shouldn't let your religion be a religion of debating people. Every time someone comes and he wants to debate you, you say yes. You may meet someone who is gifted in the art of debating. He knows how to debate. And he'll debate with batil. And he'll overpower the truth. So the religion, from the usul of a salafiyah, from the fundamentals, is I don't debate with people like that. There's no debating. If you are in doubt about your religion, then go find someone who's in doubt like you and debate with them. As for me, I know what my religion is, and I'm not going to give my ear or my heart. And Imam Malik said to the man who came and said, I challenge you, let's debate. He said, okay, and if you win, what should I do? He said, you should follow me on what I'm doing. He said, and if I win, what you do? He said, then I'll follow you. He said, what if the next man comes and we debate him? If he beats us, what should we do? He said, we follow him. He said, every time someone comes, we keep changing like that. He said, this is not my religion. I know my religion. Every time someone comes with a stronger argument, today we're on the sunnah, tomorrow we're communists, because he had the ability to show how communism is community sharing. No, Islam is the haqq. So we judge based upon the zahir, what is apparent. That's what the Prophet used to do, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now obviously, ikhwani, during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, like Dawood, the Nabi can give the judgment, but it's always open that Allah would reveal to him, yeah, Dawood, that lady is lying. It's always open. That didn't happen with Dawood, but during the time of the Prophet it used to happen, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah would reveal and expose people who were lying and who were doing things. People who stole things like al-ghulul. Al-ghulul is when you steal from the spoils of war. You know, the people say jihad, 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 khilafa, khilafa. But jihad in al-Islam, ikhwani, it is a bab of knowledge. Part of it is being brave. Part of it is being a warrior. Part of al-jihad is having high determination. We'll talk about it next week, inshallah. Part of al-jihad is protecting our religion and our wives and daughters, our heritage, our land, our water. Part of that is making the ultimate sacrifices and not apologizing to people. That's part of jihad. But jihad is also knowledge. Knowledge. That's why when you go to the books of hadith, the chapter of jihad is extensive. When you go to the book in fiqh, the chapter of jihad is extensive. Because it's not just about being brave. It's not just about killing people and shedding blood. Part of jihad is how the money from the jihad, the booty, how is it distributed? So there was a companion. His name was Kirkira. He was a slave. Some man from one of the tribes gave him as a gift to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were leaving the battle of Khaybar. And when the man came where they were going to stop, he got off of his camel and he went and he took the things off of the camel, the provisions, and he went to tie the camel up. Someone from the Yahud shot an arrow and killed him. They said, Hani'an lahu bil Jannah. He's going to Jannah. He received the Shahada. The Prophet swore by Allah and said, I swear by the one who Muhammad's soul is in his hands. That man is in the hellfire. Why, Ya Rasulullah? He said, because from the spoils of war, he took a bisht, he took a cloak that belonged to you have to give everything you take. Everything. In the jihad, the correct jihad of Islam, the correct jihad. Not this jihad that these people are talking about today. In the past, the real jihad, the jihad of the ulama, the real jihad with the Imam and so forth and so on. In that jihad, you cannot keep anything. You made jihad and you find an iPhone. You have to give that iPhone to the Imam. You can't say this is a nice one. I always wanted the iPhone and put it in your pocket. That's a kabira from the kaba'ir. That's a major sin in Islam. So that man, his cloak will burn him in the hellfire, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he said that, a companion got up, he went, and he came back with 1 or 2 shoestrings. The people said, what was that? He said, shirakun or shirakan min an-nar. He said, 1 or 2 shoestrings from fire. I don't want it. And he gave the shoestrings back. Because he didn't want to burn. So during the time of the Prophet, this is the point. People were exposed. Things happened. People were exposed. So they used to, as a result of that, knowing revelation can come down, they used to have a higher level of iman. That yaqeen, that maybe Allah is going to expose me. That's one of the reasons, Ikhwani, that the companions were on a higher level too. Because as they were sitting and living, any of them who were doing anything, whatever they were doing, he always knew, Allah can reveal my situation in the Quran. So it gave them more incentive to be upright. And they were on another level. Whereas right now, and this is the point, Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people used to act and the revelation would expose them. Now there's no more revelation. We judge people based upon what is apparent. If we see what is good from them, we'll judge based upon that. If we see what's bad from them, we'll judge based upon that. As for the secrets, we leave the secrets with Allah. So if someone came and the people said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Umar, Ya Faruq, he's a good man, he's a good man, he's a good man. But Umar saw his apparent situation went against that, he judged people based on that and dealt with them based upon that. And the opposite holds true. So we base our rulings upon the zahir, even if the person is lying. I give you an example of this, Ikhwani. Do you not know in Al-Islam, in order to say that someone committed adultery, you have to produce 4 witnesses. 4 witnesses. 4 witnesses who saw everything. He saw everything. What is meant by saw everything? He has to see the whole operation going in and out. That's what he has to see. He can't see images. He can't hear sounds. He has to see. If he comes forward and he says, I heard it. If he comes forward and he says, I saw something, then that man is going to be flogged in Al-Islam if he doesn't bring 4 witnesses. If he brings 3 or 2, they're all flogged. And they're considered to be the fasiqeen. Never did it happen in Islam that someone was caught like that. It never happened. Yeah, but man, we know he did it. He did it. No, you have to judge based upon what is apparent in this religion. And part of our religion is being satisfied with what Allah has decreed. Allah is going to deal with that individual. And that's part of being on the aqeedah of the Salaf. There are certain ahadith that talk about Allah's names and His attributes that sometimes for some people you say, what? How? Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah will come to the people in a image, in a picture that they don't know Him. And they're going to say, we seek refuge in Allah from you. They're going to say that about Allah. Someone hears that hadith and say, wow, sweat is coming out of my head. Hey, that hadith is authentic. The scholars who wrote books about the Aqidah to Salafiyya, they say, we take these hadith and we just we take them the way they come, without trying to explain it. وَلَا تَسْتَوْحِشُ مِنْهَا قُلُوبُنَا. Our hearts they're not agitated. It's a hadith, khalas, that's how it is. Same thing over here. That's Allah's sharia. Allah didn't legislate that sharia in order to let people oppress people and to get away. Nah. So we base things upon the zahir. From the benefits of the hadith, ikhwani, it goes to show how, as a judge, you can use certain tricks to get to the bottom of the ruling. You have to judge between your children, your oldest son and your youngest son, your daughter and your other son, your brother and your sister. He gives his side of the story, you give, and the other one gives their side of the story. And you want to get to the bottom of it. You can use the trick that Dawood used, salawatullahi wassalamu alayhi, or Sulaiman. Bring me the knife. I'm going to cut him in half. If it was the baby of the older lady, no way in the world would she have said, no way. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. I carried this baby around 9 months. I delivered this baby. I gave him his milk. And now you're going to cut my baby in half? No way. The other lady, if it wasn't her baby, she would have been happy. Yeah, that sounds good. It's not my baby. I'm hasid. Go ahead, cut the lady's baby. But she said, no, Allah yarhamak, Allah have mercy. The baby is hers. So he knew whose baby it was. You also have that ability. And that's this thing called al-fatina. The judge has to have insight. And it comes with experience. You know when your child is lying. Even if he says, wallahi, you know when he's lying. I know you. I've raised you. I've been with you from day one until this very day. And it makes us upset that our children think that we're stupid. But sometimes we do that to each other. We say to our wives certain things. She knows that you're lying. Were you at the snooker hall? No, I wasn't at the snooker hall. I went to the walima. But she knows you're lying. It's Sunday night. We was at the snooker hall. She knows, especially back then when they used to allow the people to smoke in the snooker hall because she could smell your clothes and everything like that. But she knows. Our mother Aisha, she said, Ya Rasulullah, what is your opinion about a pasture where there were animals who ate from the grass, and there's another pasture that there were no animals who ate? It was just pure and clean with nice grass. Which one would you prefer? He knew right away what she's talking about. The one that has the grass that was eaten, those are the other wives who had been married prior to him. And she's the pasture that no other man was with her. So he smiled. He said, I want that pasture over there. But he had that insight. That's how the judge has to be when it comes to dealing with his flock, those people who are under his authority. So, ikhwani, this is part of the story of Sulaiman, part of the story of Dawood about judging. Ya Dawood, inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard fahkum bayna nasi bil haqq wa la tattabi' al hawa fayudillaka an sabilillah. Ya Dawood, we have made you the Khalifa in the earth. You're in charge. So judge between the people in truth. And don't follow your desires. Because if you follow your desires, it's my mother, it's my sister, it's my tribe, it's my masjid, it's my imam, it's my madhab. If you follow your desires, it's going to lead you away from the sabil of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with that, ikhwani, we want to bring this session, inshallah, to a close. We'll finish next week about another issue concerning Sulaiman, dealing with Ulu al-Himma, high determination. If you brothers have any questions, you can put your question forth now. Hal indakum shay? There are a number of other etiquettes, ikhwani, a lot of them, but maybe during the Q&A session they'll come out, maybe not. Hal indakum shay? No questions? Okay then. هذا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سلام. فيكم بارك الله يا حبيبي. حياكم الله يا أخي زكي.